Top 5 loudest events of 2025 that made such a splash they shook the walls of art pavilions around the world. Let's go. Number 5. A record sale of Frida Kahlo. On November 20th, 2025, an important event for the global art market took place at Sotheby's auction in New York. The painting El Sueño La Cama, which translates from Spanish as the dream bed, painted by Frida Kahlo in 1940, was sold for $54.7 million. This amount set a new record for a work created by a female artist. Becoming the most expensive lot of its kind in auction history, the auction house had predicted a price range of 40 to 60 million, and as a result, the bidding turned into an intense battle between collectors before the hammer fell at an 8-figure sum. The work was shown at the Exquisite Corpus auction, which also featured pieces by surrealists like Salvador Dali and René Magritte. The presence of such esteemed company highlighted the lot's artistic importance. Before that, the auction record for women artists belonged to Georgia O. Kif, her Jimson with white flowers, sold for $44.4 million in 2014. No woman artist sold for more in 11 years, and Kahlo's price exceeded it by a wide margin. This set a new personal record for Kahlo, beating the previous $34.9 million for Diego and Diego and I, set in 2021. El Sueño La Cama is one of the most profound and symbolically rich works by Frida Kahlo. On the canvas, the artist depicted herself sleeping in a bed under a looming canopy, above which a skeleton rises with a bouquet of bright flowers and a rolled-up stick of dynamite. A powerful symbol referring to the danger of death and inner tension, the drama that were characteristic of Kahlo's paintings. The work was made during what art historians call a difficult time in Frida's life. In 1940, her former lover Trotsky was killed, and the artist was experiencing a difficult relationship with her husband, the renowned Mexican painter Diego Rivera, who was unfaithful. Because due to her health and pain, she was not fully able to physically respond to intimacy. Her works reflected these experiences, filled with symbols of pain, vulnerability, struggle for life, and thoughts on her mortality. The artist was in an accident at the age of 18, and pain haunted her throughout her life, severely limiting the physical activity of this passionate woman. And her inner strength, desire to live life to the fullest, and at the same time frustration, were often expressed in her paintings, vivid, rich, symbolic, and often frightening. I'll have a video about Frida Kahlo on my channel, so subscribe to catch it. The sale of El Sueño La Cama for $54.7 million was not just a commercial success, but also an important cultural milestone. This is a new record for works created by a woman, and a testament to how highly Kahlo's art is valued today. This reflects not only the prices on the market, but also a shift in attitudes toward the legacy of women artists who have traditionally been undervalued in art history. Fourth place is the scandal at Artemisia Gentileschi's exhibition, and in fourth place we have another woman artist, although she lived 300 years before Frida. I decided to include this scandal in my top 5 to show that sometimes the road to hell is paved with good intentions. A heated discussion and even a scandal took place at Artemisia Gentileschi's exhibition, which was held in Italy in April 2025. Artemisia Gentileschi is one of the first well-known female artists in art history. I mentioned her in my video about women in the art world. I'll leave the link in the description. She lived in the 17th century. At that time, being an artist was a male-only profession. Occasionally, high society women were allowed to dabble in painting, but only until she married. After that, her focus was expected to be her husband and children. However, from early childhood, Artemisia showed much greater talent than even her own brothers, with whom she was an apprentice in Orazio's workshop. At 19, she was raped by the Florentine artist Agostino Tassi, who worked with her father. After a humiliating 7-month trial for the artist, Tassi was found guilty and sentenced to 1 year in prison. The artist's experiences were expressed in her most famous work, Judith Beheading Holofernes. As you know, this was a terrible disgrace for a woman, making it very hard for her to find a match afterward. However, Artemisia's wealthy father still arranged her marriage in 1612. Afterward, she quickly left for Florence with her husband, where she met Cosimo II de' Medici. He was the very first and wealthiest patron and plunderer of the arts in Europe, and she became the first woman to be elected as a member of the Academy of Painting in Florence, the first art academy in Europe. She was actually friends with Galileo, and at the height of her career, she even received a commission from the church in the city of Pozzuoli near Naples. A woman received a commission from the church, even if it was a small one, and that was truly extraordinary. In other words, Artemisia became one of the first female artists in the modern male-dominated art world, successfully competing with the true giants of the Italian Renaissance. Returning to our story, the curators of the exhibition decided to organize it around that very painful incident that happened to the artist in her youth. Although she returned to this subject more than once, it would be wrong to call it the defining theme of her work. The reason for the discussion was a multimedia installation in a separate room, which consisted of a video sequence with paintings by Artemisia Gentileschi and a voiceover commentary describing what was happening step by step. It ended with blood splatters projected onto a bed in the hall's center. Such naturalism and focus on events in the artist's life that were undoubtedly traumatic but not defining for her work were reasonably criticized. Visitors and critics found it too crude a manipulation. Is it worth distracting the viewer for the sake of hype from the truly important and almost heroic journey of the artist who managed to achieve the impossible in a man's world? A woman who, despite her trauma, didn't dwell on it, but turned it into her weapon. What does all this have to do with how we understand and why we value the artist? That's what the newspapers wrote, and I tend to agree. Don't you think that lately we've become too fixated on trauma instead of moving on with our lives? The curators of the exhibition defended themselves, but I think that the artist herself wouldn't be very happy if her historical exhibition, meant to highlight her legacy, took place under such a banner. Events from her youth which she perhaps didn't even want to talk about. And what do you think? Write in the comments. Third place for a record sale by Klimt is the sale of a painting that took place last year at Sotheby's auction in New York. It truly became an epoch-making event. It marked the most expensive work of modernist art in history. The famous painting by Gustav Klimt, Portrait of Elizabeth Lederer, was sold for a fantastic $236.4 million, becoming the fifth most expensive in history. Ahead are The Card Players by Paul Cézanne at $250 million, When Will You Marry by Paul Gauguin at $300 million, Augmen by Vili Makuning at $300 million, and Salvator Mundi by Leonardo da Vinci at $450 million. The bidding for the painting started at $150 million. For 20 minutes, 6 buyers competed, but the winner remained unknown. When the price reached $200 million, the owner of Sotheby's auction house, Patrick Dry, shook hands with the director of the house, and they laughed with satisfaction, since Sotheby's gets 10% from each Sotheby's sale. The painting was called the most expensive work of contemporary art in history, and the portrait also became the second most expensive ever sold at auction. Salvator Mundi by Leonardo da Vinci still holds the record, having sold for $450 million in 2017. Such a high price is explained by the fact that almost all of the artist's works have long been in museums, but this one was in the private collection of the owner of the cosmetics company Estée Lauder, Leonardo Alan Lauder, who died last year, and the painting went up for auction. The painting was created 2 years before Klimt's death in 1916, and it depicts the daughter of Klimt's wealthy patron, the Austrian industrialist August Lederer. At the time this painting was created, the Lederer family was the second wealthiest family in Vienna, second only to the Rothschilds. After the annexation of Austria by fascist Germany in 1938, most of the family fled, and the Lederer art collection was looted by the Nazis to escape the persecution faced by all Jews. Elizabeth received a document stating that Klimt was her father, with the help of a high-ranking Nazi official who was her former brother-in-law. This allowed Elizabeth to remain in Vienna until her death. The painting remained in the Lederer family until 1985, when it was sold to Lauder and hung above his dining table for a full 40 years. The sale price of the painting to Lederer is unknown, but it likely wasn't more than a few million at the time. Second place, the non-fungible token crash. You might not even know what a non-fungible token is, which makes this event even more interesting for you. I couldn't miss it. To me, it not only transforms contemporary art, but also seems ironic. unimaginable millions spent on a new trend just because it was promoted by famous people went down the drain, leaving almost everyone who believed in it empty-handed. Non-fungible token stands for non-fungible token, and this complicated name is nothing more than a simple electronic digital signature used to sign a piece of digital art. As a rule, it's a picture or video in digital format that doesn't exist physically. What is it even for? You see, art dealers are always looking for new ways to make money, and with the rise in popularity of Bitcoin, they came up with the idea that there's a huge, still unmonetized field, digital art. But there's a problem. Any digital file can be easily copied just by downloading or copy-pasting. In such conditions, you can't really talk about the value of an object that anyone can download as many times as they want. So they came up with NFTs, which supposedly make the very first created piece unique, signed with an electronic key, and only with the transfer of rights to the artwork. All of this is based on blockchain technology, the same one that Bitcoin was built on. The crazy rise of this cryptocurrency has also influenced the hopes of the art world. And so, in 2015, the first full-fledged non-fungible token project, Etheria, was launched, where the creators planned to sell 457 unique encoded tiles for storing art. No one bought them until 2021, when Bitcoin's rise boosted non-fungible token interest. I didn't understand what blockchain was, what NFTs were, but everyone was sure that those who were the first to ride the new trend would get rich. They brought in a few key art market figures, and the non-fungible token tiles quickly sold for $1.3 million. But just look at this art. These very icons, having gained new technology, suddenly became worth unimaginable amounts of money. And it gets even crazier, my friends. The breakthrough occurred when major players adopted the technology. So at the Christie's auction in 2021, a non-fungible token lot featuring the work of digital artist Beeple, the first 5,000 days was put up for sale. Here he is, the artist who worked on this piece for 14 years, adding a small picture to it every day. The non-fungible token artwork surprisingly sold for an incredible $69 million. Everyone, believing a new gold rush had begun, hurried to buy and sell. The real non-fungible token sculpture by Beeple, called Humanon, was soon auctioned off for $29 million. Christie's Sotheby's competitor created its own specialized non-fungible token platform, where a 9-day auction brought in a total of $18.6 million. The most expensive token was from the popular Bored Ape Yacht Club series number 8817, which sold for $3.4 million. I'm serious, this one sold for $3.4 million. The entire art community was so hyped that Christie's sold $150 million worth in a year, and Sotheby's sold $100 million. The culmination of the madness was the digitization of the real Banksy work Morons White, which the blockchain company Injective Protocol bought from the Tagliatella Gallery in New York for 95,000 United States dollars. And after digitization, they symbolically burned it, demonstrating that now only digital art is real, the real work of Banksy. Even the Hermitage got involved, selling digitized non-fungible token versions of its paintings for $440,000, but soon the quick intoxication led to an equally rapid sobering up. Already in 2023, experts stated that the non-fungible token bubble had burst. The low quality of the works and the unclear technology did their job. Collectors no longer wanted to buy something they couldn't even show. According to research, in September 2023, 95 out of more than 73,000 non-fungible token collections had become almost worthless. All those crazy millions that were invested and burned turned into zero, but not completely. For example, in 2025, one of the Bored Apes lots, number 3112, was actually sold for $215,000. Now, the value of these lots is more about hype and history, as evidence of one of the biggest crazes in the history of art. And so, in 2025, Christie's closed its digital art department. It lasted less than 4 years. Christie's acknowledged the non-fungible token bubble burst, disappointing the art world's hopes for an endless market. We can simply nod in satisfaction. We would never buy 100 incomprehensible pixels for insane millions. I wonder what those bold people who burned Banksy's work think now. Write in the comments what you think about this. Number 1 is the Louvre Heist, and of course in first place is the scandalous Louvre robbery. On October 19th, 2025, a daring robbery took place at the Louvre, during which royal jewels and the jewelry of Napoleon and Josephine, worth about 88 million euros, were stolen in just 7 minutes. More than 8,000 stones, including diamonds, emeralds, and sapphires, from the Apollo Gallery. At 9:30 a.m., 4 robbers drove a truck with an extending ladder to the building's south side, used angle grinders to open a second-floor window, and entered the gallery. 2 stayed outside while the other 2 went in. The alarm worked and several guards were in the gallery, but the robbers threatened them with angle grinders, so the guards chose not to act. That's true. Life matters more than diamonds, especially against something as universal as angle grinders. The robbers smashed the display cases, and both the window and display case alarms blared together. That wailing continued for 7 minutes, the duration of the robbery. In 7 minutes, the robbers managed to stuff into their bags the Empress Eugenie's tiara, created in Paris shortly after the marriage of Napoleon III and Eugenie de Montijo in 1853. Made of gilded silver and adorned with 212 pearls, 2,000 diamonds, and 992 rose-cut diamonds. The reliquary brooch of Empress Eugenie was created by jeweler Paul Alfred Babst. The gold piece is decorated with 92 diamonds, a large corsage bow for Empress Eugenie, and a bow-shaped brooch with 2 long tassels adorned with 2,438 diamonds and 196 cut stones. The rose diadem from Queen Hortense's sapphire parure, for which natural-colored Ceylon sapphires were used, was created by an unknown craftsman in the first third of the 19th century, presumably for the daughter of Empress Josephine. The diadem is adorned with 24 sapphires and 1,083 diamonds. The necklace from Queen Hortense's parure consists of 8 movable sapphires of various sizes and 631 diamonds. The necklace from Empress Maria Luisa's parure is an emerald parure, consisting of a diadem, a necklace, a pair of earrings, and a hair comb. The necklace is made up of 32 emeralds, including 10 pear-shaped ones, and 1,138 diamonds. The central emerald is oval-shaped, weighs 14 kilograms, and has an octagonal cut. And the last pair of earrings from Empress Maria Luisa's parure, 6 emeralds, 2 of which are pear-shaped, and 108 diamonds. With all these valuables, the thieves jumped onto scooters and made their escape, losing Empress Eugenie's crown along the way. Just a week later, on October 25, 2025, 2 suspects in the robbery were arrested. One of them was detained at the Paris airport while trying to fly to Algeria. Both are known to police from prior thefts. On October 29, 2025, 5 more were detained in this case. None belonged to any mafia, they were all from poor neighborhoods. The boldness and even the straightforwardness of the robbery using a crane and simple angle grinders raised many questions about museum security systems. None of the stolen items have been found to this day. As you can see, friends, with enough audacity, you could even take the Mona Lisa out of the Louvre. This actually happened at the start of the last century. Check out the story in one of my videos. I'll leave a link in the description. It's been a feminine year. Paintings of women sold, works by women artists broke records, and women sparked scandals. But they didn't rob any banks, and that, I would say, is yet another sign of our times. An incredible story. But my friends, I have one request for you. I run this channel by myself, and each video is a huge amount of work, which is why they come out so rarely. But together, we've managed to create the best art channel on Runet. There's no doubt about it, and your support would be really helpful to me. Please subscribe or donate on YouTube, Boosty, or Patreon. Even small amounts help. Links are in the description. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.